Golfers don't get to scratch by accident. I'm going to show you how scratch golfers practice to get really good. First thing that scratch golfers do that you don't, they actually practice. No, I'm joking. Okay, a lot of people go out and practice and put the hours in, but they're kind of doing the same thing over and over again, and it's not necessarily making them better. So this is what I would call block practice. It's when you go to the range, you do something technical that you might be working on with your swing, maybe you're trying to shorten your swing like me, drop it more on the inside, and you just do the same thing over and over again. You hit 100 balls on repeat at the same target. Is that making you a better golfer though? How often do we hit 100 7-irons in a row on a flat lap on a golf course? Never. So there's a few things we can do to just make your practice session a little bit more productive. Now, a good way is to split your balls up into different groups. It doesn't necessarily have to be in threes, but just break your balls up and do different things with different segments. So it might be that you do 3 technical, film your swing, have a look at it, work on what you're working on, but then we move into some other areas. Now, a big thing I'm really keen for people to do is to hit at different targets, because on the golf course, we're constantly hitting across on angles.
Picture really optimal angle in from here.
It's very rarely, other than on the tee box, that we're hitting straight, and even then we might not be hitting straight relative to where the pin is, where we're trying to miss. So when you're on the driving range, you should be really working on different shots and not just hitting down the mat all the time. So working at different angles. It's great here at Alcanada, there's loads of pins out on the range. We've got them all measured so we can hit different clubs to different targets, but you don't have to have different targets to do that. You can just visualize this, pick something on the horizon to aim at. Now, a good thing about doing this is you can also work in kind of practicing your pre-shot routine and get yourself a bit more into that on-course style, because we're not just hitting ball after ball. You're very warmed up in that state. That's not what you're always like out on the golf course. So practicing your routine into the ball and actually giving yourself a little bit of a chance to breathe between each shot and giving you more of a golf course environment. Now, talking of on-course golf, it's not very often we hit 10 drivers in a row unless something's gone dramatically wrong.
Oh no.
That's in a bush. So you shouldn't really be beating ball after ball with the same club. So it's a good idea if you have these groupings to maybe imagine you're out on the golf course and you play in a hole. Can you hit a driver and then an iron? Or can you just move through the bag and hit different shots? At the end of the day, we've got to hit all our clubs out on the golf course because we're not hitting 7-iron on every hole. So adding a bit of variability and practicing with each club is really important. Now, if you want to get really Matt Fitzpatrick and statistical about this, you could make notes of where your misses are. Do I miss it further right with my driver, further left with my hybrid? Does that then influence what shots I hit out on the golf course if the hole's tight or it's a dog leg? So there's really good ways to just pick up information about your golf constantly and feed that into when you play on the course and to help you lower those scores. Now, another thing I would love to see people do more at the range is do more pitch shots. We have so many shots inside 100 yards. We don't know how far they go, we're just not very good at controlling them, and we're not consistent because we don't hit enough of them. So when you've got somewhere like this with loads of targets out, it's really easy to practice these shots, practice different distances, so then it's a little bit easier when we're out on the golf course. It can be really tempting when we're on the range to just practice driver and long irons, but we can make gains throughout the bag, so it's worth remembering that. So a big thing scratch golfers do that the majority of amateur golfers forget to do is actually work out their yardages and practice how far each club goes when they're practicing. Now, this is obviously really important because we get on the course, we don't just pull a 7-iron and hit it anywhere we want. We're trying to hit it close to the pin and to a certain target. So knowing which club we should hit for each shot is actually really important in terms of bringing the scores down, hitting the ball in the right place and getting the ball on the green. Another massive part of this is that people get really confused between like the carry distance and the total distance. If I carry my 9-iron 133 yards and it runs out to 140, I should not be trying to hit a 9-iron to a front pin that's 140 because my ball's going to land short, it's going to end up in the bunker and it's not going to get back to that pin. So knowing the difference between how far the ball flies in the air and then how far it runs out and ends up in total distance is really key. Now, there's no excuse for not knowing this because there's so many ranges of technology such as Top Tracer where you can collect this data, and there's also so many like cheaper at-home launch monitors now, so there's definitely ways for you to know this. When I was younger, me and my dad used to put rope out on the field and then we would like laser where the rope was, put pins in where I hit the balls and measure it out. So it's a lot easier to do nowadays, so there's no excuses really. So all I'm going to do is put this on practice mode, align it to where I'm going, and then hit either 3 or 5 shots with each club through your bag and just look at what the carry, what the total distances are, and take an average. Now I would say if you hit a really bad shot like you shank it, maybe don't include that in the sample data, but if you hit one slightly off, make sure you keep that in, because we don't hit the golf ball perfect out on the golf course. So you shouldn't be taking 5 flushed 7-irons and saying that's my 7-iron carry distance, because that's just not realistic at all. Because I'm abroad at the moment, this is meters, which is really confusing for me when I usually work in yards. But anyway, you can see my point here. There's one I didn't strike quite as well. There's 2 that I did, so I can see really my longest carry distance here is 114 meters. My short is 106. It gives me a little bit of dispersion, so then when I'm out on the course, I can think, well, it's 110 to the front, I can't hit that club because my worst shot doesn't carry that far. It gives you a nice little average, a nice little dispersion. Write it down in a notebook, print it out, laminate it, stick it to your golf bag. It's going to make you a better golfer. So a big part of getting down to scratch is actually practicing things that you don't want to, or things that you're bad at. So when I was a junior, basically all we did all summer was have chipping comps with everyone, and you'd practice off the weirdest and most wonderful lies to make it like exciting every day. And I think there's a lot to learn from that in terms of adapting to different shots out on the golf course. Think how many times you say, oh well, I just made a double there because my ball plugged in the bunker, or I was in a really bad lie in the rough, or I was on a downslope. But actually you can learn how to play those shots in your practice, adapt your setup, adapt your technique, which will allow you to hit an okay shot and get those big scores off the scorecard. So I've got a few examples set up here: downhill bunker, plugged bunker, how can we chip it out of the rough from a bad lie? There's loads of different scenarios that you can be practicing. Even in your long game, chipping it out of the rough, hitting it under trees, all these different scenarios we can practice, so when we get out of position, which happens to everyone, we can like get back in the game and not cause such a disaster on our scorecard. Now you have to remember when you're practicing these kind of shots, 1, at first you're probably going to be terrible, and that's alright, you need to learn and adapt. And 2, the idea here is not to hole out or to get them really close, but to maybe stop leaving them in the bunker, stop thinning them out of bounds, take the big scores out. If we can get on the green or even on the fringe from these scenarios, that's really going to bring our scores down. Jesus. I'm elite to those back pins, I'll tell you that. Scratch golfers are definitely practicing their short game more than everyone else, and there's just really easy and simple ways to do this. Now, I think it's nice to have some sort of consequence to this, again, like we talked about on the driving range, not just beating ball after ball. So a good way to do this is just to go around the chipping green with one golf ball, hit different shots, different lengths, different directions to different pins, up different slopes, and just learn to play different shots. You can do this with the same club and try get different trajectories, low, high, and then it just gives you more adaptability out on the golf course. The main thing here is that we're just practicing our short game more, so when we're out on the course, we've got more consistency. Something ridiculous like over 70% of shots are hit inside 14 yards of the pin. So should we actually be dedicating 70% of our time to chipping and putting? It's probably almost the opposite, maybe even more currently. People are doing way more long game, and really they should be out here on the chipping green, grafting. Now, once you've started doing more practice, I really like the idea of people testing themselves so they know if they're getting better. So what you can come out and do is just hit 9 chips, as almost as if it's 9 holes, hit every shot to a different pin, just pace it off and add up how much footage you've missed by. So one chip might go to 6 foot, another might go to 10 foot. Your total could end up at 65 feet. When you come back next week, can you beat that? And by the end of the season, are you getting better? This is a really nice way to just challenge yourself, make yourself concentrate, because you're just trying to get better, and then you can actually prove yourself. Your practice is paying off. And a bit like what we just talked about in the bunker, don't just give yourself princess lies, because As much as we like to have perfect shots on the golf course, it's just not what happens. Remember, this is all about learning more about golf and your game so you can put that into play on the golf course. Let's talk about pace putting, because no one does enough practice of this. And if we're saying 70% of our practice should be short game, then at least 50% of that should be putting, and at least 50% of that should be pace putting. So that's 50% of 50% of 70% of. Someone who's better at maths needs to work that out for me. Anyway, believe it or not, loads of people are three putting from even as close as like 20 feet, and it just looks like it's not that far away. Like, why are we three putting from here, lads? We'd need to work on it. So all I've done is put some balls out about every 5 feet from 20 feet, working backwards. And next to the hole, I've put a stick. This could be a little bit harsh. You might need 2 sticks to start with. But what I really want you to get the idea of is just getting the ball near the hole. At these distances, it's not about holing out, and actually it's not even about getting the ball to the hole. If you have a 4 foot or a 6 foot dispersion of putts, you're much better having the hole in the middle of that and ending up with a putt that's only 3 foot short or long than getting every ball to the hole and having putts that have gone 6 foot past, because they're not going to be as easy to hole. So here the whole idea is just getting the ball as near to the hole as possible, not necessarily giving the ball a chance, which sounds really confusing and counterintuitive, but working that way is going to make you hole more 2 putts and bring those 3 putts down and make you more consistent. So get some sticks out, line them up by the hole, give yourself a box, and over time see if you can get that dispersion close. What I would like to add is also you don't really need a hole to do this, and make sure you're working up and down slopes, because you don't want to do all your pace putting uphill and then suddenly the ball's disappearing off the green when you get a downhill putt. I mean, I definitely need to work on this more. At least I'm consistent. I'm literally like this every time I put in a vlog, so I'll join you on the putting green maybe.